Hello, hello. Happy Saturday afternoon. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Let me just check to see if everything's running smoothly, and then we will get rocking and rolling on what we got going on today with a little Brett Cooper, a little Sam Harris action, some Michelle Obama. We'll talk about Iran a little bit and all that good stuff happening in the world. Looks like we're pretty solid and good to go. So, hello, my name is Aaron Mashbitz. Welcome to my stream. If you've never been here before, I host a podcast called Something for Everybody, and the majority of the topics that I cover are mindset, mental health, and personal development. But sometimes I jump into other topics, and sometimes I find Brett Cooper's videos to be kind of interesting. So really, I'm reacting to a reaction of a reaction. That's what's happening here. Just the fucking triple reaction video of me reacting to her reacting to this reaction. I guess Michelle Obama was on Call Her Daddy. I don't pay attention to Call Her Daddy. I find that podcast and that host to be quite annoying. But apparently she said some really dumb stuff. Apparently she hates white people. So let's check that out. Let's see what Brett Cooper says. Maybe that'll spark some thoughts for me. And then there's a short video about Sam Harris talking about what's going on in Iran. Which I've made a video about before. So we'll see his thoughts, and maybe if they align with mine, we'll see how that goes. But really, we're just hanging out on this Saturday morning. I'm getting ready to watch the Royal Rumble a little bit later with my buddy. So I figured I'd jump on and do a stream, hang out with you guys a little bit, and see what the fuck happens. So let's do it. Let's see what Brett Cooper has to say.
Things in life that will just always be consistent. You know, things like the McDonald's ice cream machine never working, or things like Michelle Obama sitting down behind a microphone and complaining, because that is the woman's MO. Like, at least we have that kind of stability in these trying times. And her latest episode with Alex Cooper on Call Her Daddy is no different. But there actually is one thing that I really liked, and we'll get into that too. Now, before we dive into this, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to my channel if you've not already. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on every episode, make sure to ring that notification bell, and don't skip ahead yet. If you want to see awesome farm vlogs and ad-free episodes, behind the scenes content, travel vlogs, all of that sort of thing, make sure to check out cooperconfidential.com. That is my subscription platform where you can find all of that and more coming soon. All right, so let's just...
Dude, you know what? Thanks, Brett. Gives me a great idea to tell everyone who's watching on any platform to subscribe, follow to me, check out my podcast, Something for Everybody. And if you want exclusive content from me, Aaron Mashbitz, you can check out my Patreon, where we also do ad-free episodes. Thank you, Brett Cooper. We appreciate you very much. Let's roll.
Dive right into this. The moment that I saw on my TikTok that Alex Cooper had scored Michelle Obama as a guest, I was like, here we go. Great content for me. Anyway, so this was a huge get for Alex Cooper. Back during the 2024 election on Call Her Daddy, she had Kamala Harris, and that was kind of her first big step into politics. Not to say that she had not spoken about it before, because obviously she is a left-wing millennial woman. She has talked about abortion and all the normal, feminist talking points, but she had, until that point in 2024, stayed away from hosting politicians and big political figures, but then came Kamala. And
I certainly think she should have kept staying away from the political figures, and she should have kept talking about fucking blowjobs and Gluck Gluck 9000 and all this type of shit, while secretly making a ton of money off that content, while secretly in the background dating for marriage, getting married, and all that type of stuff. Kind of shady, if you ask me, but she still has a massive following, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. So kudos to her. But jumping into the political realm with political figures is a bit dicey. And I think one thing you should do before you do that is really understand your stance, the hills you're willing to die on, and the opinions that you actually hold true, and the values that you want to represent. Because you can't say, well, you certainly can do it, but I don't think it's right to say a bunch of stuff on your podcast and then act a totally different way in your private life. I guess people do that all the time, every day. That's sort of the crux of social media. But it is what it is. And I guess that's what she wants to do. Or really, she's just trying to have Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama on so that she can have this like feminist sort of power, and she can appease her audience, which is mostly women, and whatever the case may be.
At the time, she said that she had this responsibility to have her on the show, all of that sort of thing. Now, that was obviously a big deal, but possibly an even bigger get than Kamala is Michelle Obama herself, the queen of the Democrat Party. And Michelle, of course, she came on the pod to promote her new book, which we talked about back in the fall, which is a fashion book published by her, featuring her favorite photos of herself. I'm still not over that. I think it is positively hilarious. I know that it's been months.
That's the funniest thing ever. Her favorite photos of her from her favorite fashion of her. Come on. Come on. You can't get any better than that. That's the best. I don't want to like everyone uses the word narcissistic, so I'm not going to use the word that. I'm not going to use that word because also I've done a bunch of deep dives into narcissism on my podcast, which is like a mental health mindset podcast. So I'm not going to use that word, but that's very because just claiming everyone's a narcissist is ridiculous. That sort of what is it like kind of reduces the value of the word, kind of like calling everyone a Nazi, right? It's just ridiculous. But that is very, very egocentric. We'll say that to promote a book about yourself with pictures of you that are your favorite of you, of the fashion that you wear. Oh my God. I mean, just like life is about being in service to other people. Life is about leaving the world better than you found it. And I'm sure I don't know a ton about Michelle Obama, right? I'm sure she's done amazing, great things, and like she's probably maybe she's I don't know. I don't know anything about her. I don't know if she's a great husband or a great mom. I have no idea. I'm not going to make any assumptions about her or claim to know her moral character. That's messed up on my end. But to promoting a book about yourself, about your favorite pictures, about your favorite stuff, like it's like very, very, very funny. And then claim that you're like sort of oppressed and like people don't care. It's like very strange behavior. Anyways, here we go.
Since we talked about that, I'm still not over it. I think that is the funniest thing. Like, I'm just envisioning Michelle being like, guys, I'm not getting enough press. People don't like my podcast. They're listening. They're requesting that I come speak at events anymore. I need to make some more money. What am I going to do? I'm going to publish my favorite photos of my outlets and everyone is going to love it. And the thing that is so hilarious is that people did. Like, it immediately became a New York Times bestseller. Everyone wanted to see what Michelle Obama was wearing. Anyway, it is just hilarious to me. So here's the thing. In the context of that book, knowing that she is doing this entire book on her clothing and how stylish she was as the first lady, you would expect that her, coming on to call her daddy, that she would want to be talking about her clothing and her style, right? Like that would make sense. Wrong, absolutely not, guys. If you thought that, you are offensive. You are a misogynistic. Shame on you for wanting to talk about Michelle Obama's clothing, because Michelle does not want anybody, she never did want anybody to talk about her fashion. That actually, to her, was
also, I think this is like when Brett Cooper is at her best. She's not at her best when she's like pseudo defending bullshit ideas or running cover for Candace Owens or talking about how Nick Fuentes has aura. Like that's not her game. Her game is like these sort of pop culture-esque takes and relating them to like feminism and the larger culture and some dating stuff and what people think and feel. I think the other stuff is a little, I don't know. I mean, what? She's just running cover for the wrong people. But I think this is when Brett Cooper is at her best because, like, I mean, only 4 minutes into this video, and I find it very, so far, very entertaining. We haven't even talked about Michelle Obama yet, so
very offensive. Just listen.
But as my popularity rose, I was being covered more, right? And so the press enters the scene, and there are now reports, right? And the first thing after all this great conversation and connection, the top of the article would be she was wearing.
It's what she was wearing with the snarl, with the lip flip, the snarl. Like, you could not imagine that this woman was actually publishing a book about her style. God forbid we talk about what Michelle Obama is wearing. I'll let her continue here.
Not my education, not my not my professional career.
Yeah, none of that clothing talk, Michelle. We need to focus on brass tacks. We need to get down to your accomplishments. I mean, like, Michelle, the writing is on the wall. Like, did we forget why you were on this podcast in the first place? Have we forgotten why you're doing this press tour and the very specific book that you have just published? Somebody commented and said, writes a whole ass book about her outfits. Why are people always focusing on my outfits? Somebody else said, don't judge me by my fashion. Also, buy my book about my fashion. It is an absolute clown show. And guys, the best part.
Great comments right there. Yeah, it's so funny. People are always like, they'll tell you not to talk about something and they don't want to talk about it anymore, but then they'll continue to talk about it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Hilarious. Yeah, great stuff. Let's go. Let's keep going.
She couldn't even help herself on this podcast. It's not like she sat down with Alex Cooper and was like, yes, on Call Her Daddy, I'm going to have a very intelligent, serious conversation about policy and politics and all of these things. No, they still talked about her clothing. Brecca Stoll posted, today, Michelle Obama joined the sex and dating podcast Call Her Daddy to criticize society's focus on women's looks. She promoted her new book, The Look, which explores her outfits as First Lady. Obama told the podcast host, Alex Cooper, that she wished the press focused less on what she wore wore and more on her education and professional background. The top of the article would be, what was she wearing? Obama said. Not my education, not my professional career. Cooper agreed with Obama, obviously, as she would. Both women seem to forget that 12 minutes earlier in their interview, she opened with, talk to me about your outfit. How did you pick it? Just watch.
I'm happy you're here. Talk to me about your outfit. How did you pick it?
It's hilarious. Oh my gosh, ladies, let's talk about it. Let's not talk about Michelle's accomplishments. No, let's talk about her hot pink sweater. I mean, the comedy just writes itself, and that was worth pointing out. Somebody commented and said, this never-ending media tour of leftist media gaslighting the world into thinking that Michelle Obama is a fashion icon when our current first lady is a literal supermodel is hilarious. Yeah, and where is Melania's book? Where is her Vogue cover? It does not exist because they will never admit that she is a supermodel. They will never acknowledge her style and her poise and her grace, but thank God. Oh, thank God we have a book of Michelle telling us why she picked certain pantsuits on certain days. I really don't know if I could have gone on without it. Speaking of how she was picking outfits, apparently Michelle is getting really big into picking things based on the race of the creator or designer. And this was not a clip from Call Her Daddy, but based on what we're talking about, it did seem worth throwing in here and mentioning. Just watch this.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it?
Mm-hmm.
Who are we supporting in it?
Right.
You know, and I think if you have the money to buy Chanel,
Mm-hmm.
then you have the money to buy everybody.
Right.
And so let us be mindful, I think would be my advice.
Okay, so 2 points that I want to just call out here. Number one, again, she's promoting.
Also, the funniest part about that was they all go, together in unison, the three hosts, I guess, of the show. Someone said, I watched that clip, someone said that the skirt she's wearing was like a little over $1,000 from like I got maybe a white person, but it's like ridiculous. You just buy stuff that you like. Like, I don't, why is that so wild? Like, oh, this outfit or this piece of clothing looks good on me, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to support this person. Why does everything have to be about race and this and that? And like, it just makes everything just less, like what she says, less like important almost.
This fashion book. She's sitting around with all these women. They are like the seals. They're applauding. They're nodding along. Oh, yes, Michelle, this is just so insightful what you're saying. And she's talking about the significance of who you choose to wear and the clothes that you choose to put on your body, the designers that you're working with, you know, where you're spending your money, putting your values. Obviously, her values are all about race towards designers and your clothing. But meanwhile, she's sitting on other podcasts saying, don't talk to me about my clothing. It's not relevant. They always wanted to know what I was wearing. I actually think that asking a woman what she was wearing, if she's being intentional about it, that's a really interesting conversation. For example, Reagan Reese from the Daily Caller, she posted this and she said, women should welcome conversations about their outfits. Clothes are such powerful communicators. It is a form of rhetoric. What you choose to put on every day sends a message about you. Not to mention, women are beautiful and they create beauty through their outfits. I think that we should celebrate it and talk about it more. The entire mindset about whether it's okay to talk about what a woman is wearing or not because it might diminish how smart or successful they are is stupid. I completely agree. And the thing is, I would not be sitting.
I think we should talk about anything that people seem to care about. And if you put a lot of time and attention into something, then that is an action that shows that you care about something. And so if you give the action of caring about something and you put your time and attention into it, why would that not be a conversation of topic? You spend money on clothes, you care about what you wear, you write a book on clothes. So that gives the impression and the actions that you do care about something, which anyone from an outsider's perspective would say, oh, that's something that we should talk about because you care about it. If all I do was watch baseball and talk about baseball and then told everyone never to ask me about baseball, those values don't align. So I want the sort of recognition and praise of my outfits, but I also don't want to talk about them because I don't want to be seen as someone who cares about their outfits. Like that's some sort of weird, no, it's like, if you care about something, you're going to talk about it and have the actions that behind that. And then based on that, people who interview you are also going to talk about it. That just only makes sense. And to not have that happen is hypocritical, is valueless, and quite frankly, is very lame. And so, yeah. Let's see, Brett, what do we got?
Here, picking apart what Michelle is saying, if she just leaned into that. If she said, you know what, I've thought about this over the years. I used to be so angry about this, but then I realized how much thought I put into my outfits and how much I think about it now. And even if I disagreed with the premise of how she was, spending her money and what she thought was, important and what she was valuing, because it differs from me, I would respect that. But every single time she sits down behind a microphone to promote this book about her fashion, she seems to want to diminish from fashion and everybody else talking about her fashion. Like, do you see how cyclical and ridiculous that is? Now, the other point that I wanted to bring up about that same clip is that she is urging people to be mindful, to go out of their way to not just buy things from white designers, which is so ironic because of something that many internet sleuths pointed out. This girl said, Michelle Obama urges women not to buy from white-owned brands while wearing a $1,100 skirt created by a white designer. Racist, hypocritical, and privileged. Those are 3 great words to describe Michelle Obama. And
yeah, I mean, even if she did have something of value to say, which seems like she doesn't, it gets diminished by the hypocrisy. It gets diminished by the virtue signaling. It gets diminished by the unearned moral virtue of, I'm better than you. I'm doing these things. I'm so mindful of what I put in my closet. This is just not how you create connection or people wanting to follow you. Or even if you had great advice and you had great policies that you wanted to implement, no one's really going to take them seriously because you don't have any follow through on your actions, because what you say to people is not what you actually do. And that's one thing you really learn when becoming a parent, like I've learned, right? That's like one of my number one goals with my son, who's only 4.5 months old. It's like my words and my actions have to line up. That's the only way I'm going to be able to model the behavior I want my son to follow. And we have to think about those types of things. And our public figures have to think about them too. But politicians rarely do that. They just say what they think is going to get people to vote or buy or click or whatever the case may be. And creators now do that too. We got a comment here that says, you beat leftist minority supremacists by demanding they give us the materialistic master race of victims and oppressors. They can't even answer. They are just a racist joke. Thank you for that comment. Solving Politics 3172. Let's get back to the Brett Cooper video.
And somebody said, I can't believe that Michael is on a podcast that is owned by a white woman. So true. Back to the point of this episode, the White Woman Podcast, Call Her Daddy. The whole thing, like the entire episode, it really reeked of peak 2016 feminism to me. Like, the empty slogans of I'm with her. Don't ask me what I'm wearing. Don't tell me to smile. I'm a boss babe. That is basically what we were living through in 2015, 2016. I mean, I think back to myself as a teenager, and I'll scroll back on my Instagram, like my private Instagram, and I'll see some of the things that I posted. Like I'll post a picture with like a quote as the caption, and I look at it and it's just the most empty feminist jargon that I didn't even really believe, but I posted it because it felt like what I was supposed to do. I'm a woman, so I need to be focusing on my empowerment because I'm oppressed in this patriarchal society. That's what we're doing. Don't tell me to smile, whatever it is. Like that is the world that I was surrounded in growing up as a young woman. And that is what this entire podcast episode embodied, those empty jargons. And this whole idea, this oppressed woman game, was very reflected in how Michelle talked about being first lady on Call Her Daddy. And shocker of the century, she had things to complain about because God forbid we talk about anything other than her accomplishments. Just watch this.
And you don't want to, I was like, well, I went to Princeton and Harvard. I mean, I practiced law. I was an assistant to the mayor in Chicago. I ran a nonprofit, a 501c3. I built a board.
Doing this.
I was a vice president for community relations at the University of Chicago hospitals. I was a dean of students. I was like, oh, you guys, all of that just disappeared in the course of this whole election. And you now see me as just Barack Obama's wife. So that made me say, what, that quickly, my shoes become the most important thing about me.
There we go again. It's all about the fashion. God forbid we talk about her shoes being important. God forbid we think of her as being Barack Obama's wife. And here's the thing.
Like, why is that a bad thing? Your husband, you're married to him. You love him. You love him. He's your husband, and he just became the president of the United States. Wouldn't that be an honor in and itself and a responsibility to love and take care and support your husband? Not only think about, well, what about me? What about me? What about my accomplishments? He accomplished one of the hardest, most important things this country has to offer. And all you can think about is that, what about me? What about my accomplishments? So now my shoes and my fashion become more important than who I am. Well, he's trying to run the country. And so Well, he was didn't do a great job, but that is what it is. It's not the point of the conversation. And so it's interesting to see a wife talk about her husband like that. Um, because as a husband and my wife, what I find most best about my wife, the best thing about her is that she supports and loves my dreams and endeavors and supports them no matter what. And she uplifts me and she roots for me. That's what a wife is supposed to do if the marriage is right. And there always seems to be something shaky about Michelle and Barack's marriage. And you can tell just by the way Michelle talks about him sort of secondhand as sort of like her little puppet. He just became the president of the United States. Your job, yes, now is to support him in that role. That's what the job of a wife is to do. That's why I value and deeply respect my wife so much, because she does that for me in the same way she needs me to do that for her. But like, if your goal is to be right a leader and a provider of your household, Barack was the leader of the country, but in a smaller version, a leader and provider of of your household, then you need that support system, and that's why picking your wife is the most important decision you're ever going to make. And so, yeah, interesting things there.
I want to have like empathy here. And like, I get that for a woman like Michelle Obama, I get that it was frustrating and probably a difficult transition to go from being this, brilliant boss babe in your own right, being the Michelle Obama, to being the president's wife, to being the first lady, and having to give up your career in order to support him in that endeavor. Especially if you are somebody like Michelle, obviously, whose entire self-worth and confidence comes from her career and all of her accolades and accomplishments. I mean, she brings it up in every single interview. She's desperate for people to recognize that she was something before she was the first lady. But I'm just so tired of it, because guess what, Michelle? That was almost 2 decades ago. Barack became president almost 20 years ago. And also, just objectively, how cool is it? How incredible is it that you had the opportunity to do something as remarkable as being the first lady of the United States? That you had the opportunity to support your spouse, the man that you love more than anything, as he takes the highest office in the world, as he becomes the president of this country. Just compare her attitude to, Usha Vance, for example, who is also ridiculously accomplished in her own right, is a, high-powered attorney, and she simultaneously seems so proud and happy to be standing next to JD Vance as he takes on this role as the vice president. She has taken on this job because it is a job. She's taken on the shift in her life with grace.
That's the job of a wife, to look at your husband, especially when he becomes worthy of that. Look at your husband with admiration and praise and respect. Now you have to earn that. You have to earn that admiration, respect, and praise. And men have to go out and earn that. But once they do, via their accomplishments, through their leadership, through providing, through protecting, through all these things that become, that make a masculine, healthy man, then the woman, the wife in the relationship should be that support, should look at her man with admiration and respect. And that's a driver for men that makes them feel even more useful and duty-driven and purpose-driven than before. And it's like this huge sort of conglomeration of things that go together that drive us forward as men. And that's what a wife is supposed to do, especially in this position where your husband takes the most important job in the whole entire universe.
Acknowledging that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that as of now, it's just for 4 years. She said in a recent interview, "My attitude is that this is a 4-year period where I have a set of responsibilities to my family, myself, and obviously to the country, and that's really what I'm focused on. I'm not plotting out next steps or really trying for anything after this." And that was in response to people pressing her about, is JD going to run for president, whatever. And she goes on and she says, "In a dream world, eventually I'll be able to live in my home and kind of continue my career and all those sorts of things. And if that happens in 4 years, I understand. If that happens in some other point in the future, I understand. I'm just sort of along for the ride and enjoying it while I can." That's humility. That's understanding that your husband has this incredible opportunity and going, you know what? I can wait right now. I've done all of these amazing things, but you have this incredible opportunity and we're going to make it work as a family because I have a duty to you and our country to do this. And then compare that to Michelle, who just can't let it go almost 20 years later that she had to go support Barack. Like, can you imagine your husband being so loved and accomplished and powerful? What woman would want to deal with that? And that also isn't just a woman thing. Like, as individuals, as people who are married or have significant others, you should just be proud of your significant other, of your spouse accomplishing something and chasing a dream, doing something incredible, maybe like graduating from GCU. And Grand Canyon University is a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, offering over 360 academic programs, all informed by industry and student learning outcomes. And it is 50 years old this year. Good.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it
Christ.
just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Good Ranchers was built on. And every cut of Good Ranchers meat is raised on local American. Comparing her to Usha, and what Usha was saying in that interview is that, like, Michelle, Barack is not president anymore. He hasn't been president in a decade. So why are you not back out being the vice president of a hospital? Why are you not out being an attorney, being the dean of students, whatever it is that you care so much about? You've had 10 years to go back to that if that was so important to you. Or we have to ask, does being Barack's wife, does being the former first lady just pay too well these days? Is that just more comfortable? Like, if you really felt that way, if you really want
Again, it's all just empty words, empty shit that's coming out of her mouth. She doesn't mean anything she says. She wants people to, I guess, feel sorry for her. Like, it's the same with what's that lady, the prince, Meghan Markle, right? Who just like, does all these shows and stuff and gets all this money to like make her seem like more of like a regular quote unquote person. Like, that doesn't. No one wants that. That's like none of that is real. People want authenticity. Like, it's the only reason I started streaming more often is because like people want realness, and the only way to be real is to do it live, in person, or not in person, but just live. Like, these are my thoughts. I don't have anything. I can't hold anything back. If I mess up, we got to keep going. Like, it just is what it is, and this builds trust with an audience, which is hopefully what I'm trying to do outside of like the regular episodes that I produce on my podcast, but going live here and just speaking from the dome, watching something, speaking from the dome, and see where it goes. Like, that is supposed authenticity and realness. That's why streamers today are the most popular people if you put them in front of like a podcaster or someone who just does YouTube shorts or like whatever the case may be. The streamer is going to be the most popular because they've built the most rapport and trust with their audience. Michelle Obama just doesn't seem to have done that because she talks, excuse my language, but directly out of her ass, because nothing that she says lines up with her actions. We should only, we should be mindful about what we have in our closet. We should support people of color, but I'm going to wear almost $12,000, $1,200 white designer skirt. It just doesn't line up. None of these things match up. And so the regular everyday person is like, fuck that. I need someone who lines up their words and their actions. That's what some of the best coaches in the world do. And so politicians should do that too, and former first ladies should do that too. But they just have unearned moral virtue, and they want to they're trying to their best to connect with the everyday person who works a 9 to 5 and grinds and doesn't get paid $100,000 to go speak at a university and then claims that they're not privileged or whatever the case may be. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work, especially when you just lie through your teeth. It's kind of gross.
People to be concerned with your accomplishments, then why is this your X bio? I just think this is really funny. Her bio on X is girl from the South Side and former first lady, wife, mother, dog lover, always hugger in chief. Hashtag the look, promoting her fashion book. Michelle, I thought you wanted us to talk about your accomplishments. Where are the accolades? Where is the resume? If I didn't know any better, I would be sitting here going, well, I guess she's just Barack's wife. Even Hillary Clinton's bio is better. She says 2016 Democratic nominee, Secretary of State, Senator, hair icon, mom, wife, grandma ×3, lawyer, advocate, fan of walks in the woods, and standing up for our democracy. Like Hillary Clinton, she is going to go down being an accomplished woman if it is the last thing she does. But Michelle, she's fine just cashing in a check on the back of her husband's presidency, but also wants to complain about us not taking her seriously in the career that she hasn't had in almost 2 decades. Just saying, it's a little odd. Now, anyway, speaking of future female presidents, this was also a big part of the interview. Just watch.
You said, don't even look at me about running because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You're not.
There are men out there that we're not going to vote for a woman. Let's just be real about it, and let's put that on the table and talk about, well, what's that about? Let's not be mad because I made the statement. The young women that we're talking to, keep climbing. We need you, and know that you may come up short, but keep going.
Yeah, you might come up short because the men are just not ready. Well, so profound. Michelle Obama is not going to grace us with a presidential run because the men of America are not ready for her. Now, that moment right there, that was like Alex Cooper's bombshell question of the interview. America just not being ready, not being feminist enough, us still being held back by the patriarchy in America. And this really caused a lot of anger and revelations for the podcast host. Just listen.
When people talk about patriarchy and misogyny and they try to give examples, I love it. But I do think the most obvious glaring example of the patriarchy is the fact that we have never in the history of time ever had a woman be the president of the United States. It almost has become, oh, well, that's just normal. No, that's not normal. Men are the only ones who have ever held the highest position in the government. No woman But yes, we're so equal. Oh, well, actually, we're legally not equal to men. And that is a great point. How could a woman even be the president of the United States when we don't even have equal rights to half of the population that the woman would be governing over?
I mean, guys, this is what I mean when I say it is peak 2016 feminism. We're back talking about the patriarchy and misogyny and not having a female president. We're not equal. We have to band together, girlies, and fight for our rights. What rights? What rights are you trying to fight for? The right
Yeah, like where are you not equal? I'm always so confused about that. Like I just don't follow. That was also a very sort of lame Instagram video. I think Alex Cooper is a lame podcast host. All of her questions are pre-planned, and she tells her guests what they're going to talk about, so everyone knows they're on the same page, and make sure they don't have any sort of surprises or spur of the moment conversations, or at least nothing organic ever could happen in the conversation. It has to be directly to the point, and then she'll jump on her Instagram and talk about things that she just doesn't understand. Even though that she's a woman who runs her business and makes $1 million a year and is very successful and is a boss babe, but also is married and kind of has it all. But will claim that most women can't have it all because it's too hard and that they're not equal and that, someone's trying to bring women down. And it's like, oh, get off your fucking high horse from the position that you're in. It's a fucking ridiculous. Let's go, Brett.
to kill your unborn child in the womb. Like, murder is also illegal for men, ladies. That is not inequality. That is just reality. Speaking of reality, I often feel like I live on like a different planet than people like Alex Cooper, because I'm like, are you really sitting around thinking about the fact that we have not had a female president? Like, is that something that consumes your day-to-day life? I can probably count on one hand the times that I have thought about, oh yeah, man, we haven't had a female president. It's probably even less than that I've sat around and gone, man, we really need one. I just don't care. I really don't.
If you want to make more money without having to do any more work, then this is how you do it. Because right now, there is a certain amount of
I genuinely do not care. Does not matter to me. I want the best person for the job. If it's a woman, great. If it's not, I do not care. That does not consume my everyday being, and it's kind of odd that it does for you. Now, in my mind, all of this goes back to something that I said early last year when I was doing an episode about Michelle Obama launching her own podcast with her brother. And it was that I genuinely think that Michelle is deeply jealous, that she is deeply jealous and resentful, that she is deeply angry that it was Barack and not her that became president, because she's always coming up with these excuses for why she's never going to run, because she doesn't do politics. She'll never be a politician.
She should fucking run then. If she really thinks that she could change the country in the best way possible, then we should have those people who are motivated to run, who are motivated to make this country the best it can possibly be. We need those people running. And if she claims it, she should do it. But she makes all these excuses that she shouldn't do it and doesn't do politics and whatever. And it's like this whole thing that she's been doing, like this whole time we've been watching Brett Cooper react to her, is basically everything she says is not what she actually does or believes. She just says it to say it, like a lot of people.
She's too much of a common woman to do something as elite as that. Or because, men aren't ready for somebody like her to be president. Yeah. And it just kind of seems to me like she's trying to absolve herself of any responsibility.
Yeah, I'll speak for all men here. Yeah, we're definitely not ready for someone who's a hypocrite and valueless. Of course we're not. Why would we be ready for that? Most men just want someone who's the absolute best for the job. Most men, I can't speak for every single one. Of course, there are some men out there who do legit hate women. Sure. Cool. But most men are good men, and those good men want the person who's best for the job and earns it through merit and execution and effort. That's what we want. And the first, and Kamala Harris being thrown out there for president, she was not. She was not the best candidate. She didn't execute. She had no merit. Like, none of these things were going to line up for her to be the first woman president of the United States. But if there isn't a fantastic woman candidate, let's go. We want that. I mean, for Christ's sake, one of the most masculine men on the internet, Jocko Willink, was promoting Tulsi Gabbard. So don't claim that men aren't ready for it. The most masculine men are in their masculine for a reason, because they're sure of themselves, they're confident, and they understand that whoever's best for the job is best for the fucking job. That's what we understand. So that claim that we're not ready for it is so dumb, outdated. Again, like Brett Cooper saying, it's like a 2016 vibe.
And make herself feel bigger and better than this political office that she is now forever tied to because of her husband. And I think that is why she takes every single opportunity she has to mock her husband and belittle his influence and his former job. Way back in 2017, it feels like a million years ago, there was a Harvard law professor who had taught both Michelle and Barack, who said that she actually was the smarter of the couple and that she was actually more suited for the Oval Office. You can see this headline here. The Obama's law professor says that Michelle should have been president. I feel like Michelle saw that article and she took it to heart, or maybe she already thought that herself. Therefore, it wouldn't surprise me if she harbors all of this resentment about her husband getting the opportunity instead of her. You know, the smarter Obama, the more accomplished career woman Obama. And it's all because she's a woman and the world wasn't ready and still isn't ready today. Or, Michelle, just my hypothesis, maybe it's the fact that Americans simply are not ready for an arrogant, out-of-touch president who complains every single time she opens her mouth, and that your husband was objectively cooler and funnier and more charismatic. Even people on the other side of the aisle can acknowledge that. I have done a lot of complaining myself today, and one of my favorite things to do is laugh about Michelle Obama, but I don't want to be completely negative in this episode. And there was one good thing that I liked that came out of this interview, and it is something that I actually say.
Great job, Brett. Let's end on a high note. I love that. Let's go. We want to live an optimistic life. Optimism, in my eyes, is the foundation for mental toughness. What is optimism? It's the fundamental belief that things will work out for the best through the right effort, attention, and focus. And it's the foundation for your mental toughness. It allows you helps you move through obstacles, is what I'm wanting to say. And again, I talk about that a lot on my podcast: optimism, mental performance, mindset, personal development. Actually, the most recent episode of my podcast came out yesterday on January 30th, and it's a 90-minute sort of ultimate guide on how to become the best version of yourself. And if you're interested in that episode, text me at my number, which is 201-534-3681, and I will directly link you that episode, either YouTube or Spotify link, so you can watch or listen to that 90-minute sort of masterclass on how to become the best version of yourself. But I love the idea of Brett Cooper ending on a high note, a positive note. Let's say something good about Michelle Obama. Absolutely, let's do it. Fuck yeah.
Often that I really, really believe. And so I do love that Michelle shared it. I don't really care who the messenger is. I do think that this is an important thing to get out to the world. This is what she said.
I want young listeners to focus more on their internal feelings. Instead of what the world is telling you to feel, really start trusting your gut and building that internal gut of how you feel about other people, how you feel about yourself. Because I think in the end, the work is still within. Like, the only thing you really can control is you in this world. Do the work on self. Work on being as whole as you can be, because you can't control who's going to love you, who's going to like you, who's going to give you a job, who's going to see you the way you want to be seen, because everybody has their own stuff. And so you can't define yourself by other people's stuff.
I mean, I love that. And obviously some people will hear that and they'll take this as permission for an eat, pray, love.
No, I think that's a great message. And I think Michelle Obama there is alluding to something, sort of a larger concept about confidence. Confidence actually means intense trust in oneself. And how do you build that intense trust in oneself? Well, basically, you keep the little promises you make to yourself. And that's something that you have full control over, right? What else do you have full control over? Your attitude, your effort, and your response. And Michelle Obama is totally right. We have to get right with that. We have to fix the internal world so that the external world doesn't drive us in every different direction. We're actually the ones steering the ship and moving us in the direction that we want to go. That's why it's important to have targets or goals or a pathway that you're going down. And it's important to build that confidence, which means trust in oneself, which means doing what you say you're going to do, which is obviously something that Michelle Obama does not do, but that's besides the point, right? We're talking about you and your life and how we can improve and become the best version of ourselves. Well, it starts with keeping the little promises you make to yourself, and you continually do that over and over and over again. Then you have the evidence and the receipts that you are who you say you are. That builds your self-trust, which builds your confidence, which allows you to go after the things that you truly want in this world. And so another great question to potentially ask yourself is, what do I really want? I did a goal setting masterclass on my podcast. And one of the great questions you need to ask yourself is about clarity, and is about what you really want. So then you know what direction you're heading into, and then you can figure out, you can backtrack from there. What are the daily actions and the things in my control that are going to get me closer to that target? And I think every young person, every person in the world can do that because we have full control over it. And then we're not totally driven by the external world and the news and the politics. We're actually driving our own ship in the direction that we want to go in. And we're also making the world a little bit better place. Again, so if you're interested in any of those, sort of mindset or mental health or mental performance conversations, let me know and I'll link you to the podcast episode that might be best for you on my podcast called Something for Everybody. But let's finish this one video up and then we're going to move on to Sam Harris.
Adventure. You know, I'm not going to distract myself with men. I'm going to go focus on me and me and me. And obviously, there's a lot of selfish people in the world. But the essence of her message is that you are in control of your life. You have agency over yourself, your responses, and your emotions. And I think that that is paramount. And, you know, she says this in regards to dating advice that she's giving to young women, which, you know, I also totally agree with. You need to know yourself and your goals before you invite somebody else into your life, before you start dating. But again, she's also saying something that is just so important about life. Like, there is so much noise in the world. And at the end of the day, you can only control your response and how you operate. You know, I almost just said you can only kind of control your family unit, but you can't even control things that happen within that unit. It really just comes down to you. You might not be able to control the people that you meet or the things that knock you off your feet or the opportunities or the jobs that are presented to you, but you do have the power to control your reaction and what you are going to make out of what life gives you. And the thing is, for Michelle, she was handed this incredible life due to her husband's job and his influence. Massive amounts of money and access and adoration, things that they would have not had if they had just stayed being, you know, professors and attorneys. Her response every single time she sits down is that it just wasn't good enough. Michelle, I genuinely think you would be a lot happier if you took your own advice and you reoriented your perspective. Just saying. If you made it.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, the ending part there is like a great thing that I heard someone on my podcast say who wrote a book about what Jesus teaches you about trying to be happy, is he told me that gratitude postures us for the miracles of life. And so every day is a miracle. Every time you wake up in the morning and have breath in your lungs, it's a fucking miracle. And so we're taking things as granted, not for granted, because gratitude postures us for the miracles of life. And we know challenges and obstacles and setbacks are going to enter our life. That's just inevitable part of being a human being. Hard shit, terrible shit is going to happen. But the best thing we can possibly do is, one, control our response, control our attitude and our effort, which is what we have control over, and really, really value what you have while you have it. The people, your health, your body. You want nothing more than good health when you're sick. So let's take care of that. Great relationships are the cornerstone of a good life. Let's live this life in appreciation while also still striving for more, because that's totally cool. Some people conflate, you know, gratitude with complacency. No, it's not complacency. It's being completely appreciative of what you have. If everything got stripped away, you'd love what you have right now, but you're still striving for more. And that's a beautiful thing to understand. I think those types of videos are where Brett Cooper are at her best. Thought that was a good, very entertaining video. Again, she's had some really horrible takes recently with Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and kind of the right-wing conservative party, and running cover for people who are spewing horrible, hateful shit. And she thinks Nick Fuentes has aura. I already commented on that. But when she does those type of videos, I like about sort of life and culture and things of that nature. I do enjoy those very much. But let's jump in now to see what Sam Harris has to say about what's going on in Iran. So let's share the screen here, my friends.
Okay, let's talk about Iran. The latest estimates I've heard are that between 12,000 and 16,000 protesters have been killed. As these horrifying accounts come out, where's all the support on college campuses and Hollywood, and what would you like to see happen over there in terms of America's involvement?
Well, that's a question we should have been asking for years. Right? I mean, there have been all of these uprisings in Iran in the last decade or so, especially from women, you know, and they were met with just great waves of apathy over here among people who pretend to care about the rights of women and care about the oppression of people throughout the world, and their Muslim brothers and sisters across the globe. You know, they certainly cared about Gaza, but when you're talking about an Islamic theocracy executing and torturing its own citizens, there's no real compassion. There's no real concern. It's easy to see why that's so. I mean, they can't figure out how to do the moral math on it, because they would seem to be demonizing Islam and another group of Muslims and a non-white group of people, if they shined too bright a light on the regime, right? And so it's just, if you have Muslims killing or oppressing other Muslims, no one on the left cares, right? And really, the numbers don't even matter. I mean, the numbers can be tenfold or more greater than the worst estimates of what's happened in Gaza, and no one cares, in Syria or Yemen or Sudan. I mean, it's just not. It's
Yeah, and then it's also turned to the people on the woke right not caring either. So it's like the horseshoe where the people on the left and the woke right sort of meet in the middle. And now you have people like Dave Smith who are laughing about it on the internet. It's so interesting to see them literally care so much about Gaza for the last couple of years. And then something horrible, catastrophic, terrible happens, and they just cannot, their brain fucking rots. Just like Sam Harris said, it's like they can't do the moral math to figure it out. And because their ideology doesn't fit into this sort of placeholder that they've placed the world in. And Sam Harris is someone who is on the left, right? And so for him to be able to call out this type of stuff and have clarity over it, and he's had very much clarity over Israel and Gaza over the last couple of years. I've watched a lot of his stuff. Then, of course, he's a meditation teacher and things of that nature. And he talks a lot about the mind and consciousness, and I found him very interesting on those regards as well. But he seems to have a lot of moral clarity when it comes to this stuff, and it just is so wild to see sort of the brain malfunction for these people on the left and these people on the woke right when it comes to this issue of Iran. And it doesn't seem to me like a political issue. It doesn't. It seems like a very moral, humane issue to go and support that however we can as American citizens, at least talking about it and not dismissing the fact that people are dying at a very rapid rate. It's ridiculous to see that.
just not a thing to even care about that, or even to report about it for the most part in the mainstream media. But if you have Jews killing Muslims for any reason, even in the immediate aftermath of the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, that is a moral emergency on the left, right? So that's how their moral intuitions are calibrated, and we must try to reset those weightings at some point, because none of that's going to age well, right? I mean, this is, we're going to continue to see conflict with Islamists and jihadists at the borders and even internal to scores of open societies. And it's I mean, we should absolutely be standing with the people of Iran. We should be doing what we can do to engineer a regime change. We should have done this ages ago. This is a failing. This is a bipartisan failing. Obama was terrible on this. Biden was terrible on this. It's a scandal around both their presidencies that they were so bad on this issue. Trump has been better on this, but Trump, I mean, we can see now that Trump's real concern is not democracy, it's not freedom, he really doesn't have a humanitarian bone in his body. He has other calculations, right? And so
what are his other calculations for Iran right now?
Well, I mean, he's got his support of Israel is, I guess semi-heartfelt. I'm not quite sure how deep it runs. Again, I don't think he really cares about human suffering on any level. So he's kind of accidentally on the right side of this one. I think he hates immigration. He probably hates Islam. He probably hates, he hates Muslims coming into our society from shithole countries. He hates that for Europe. So by, on the basis of that animosity and that xenophobia, he'll be on the right side of this issue at least some of the time. But he's, happy.
Yeah, well, the other argument is that people would say that Donald Trump is being puppeteered by Israel. And so anything that Israel wants him to do, he does, which is obviously stupid and not true. It's just another mutation of a Jew-hating conspiracy theory from these idiots on the left and on the woke right, who've now again joined in this sort of horseshoe theory that everything revolves around Israel and the Jews. and the Talmud has become the most popular book in the fucking world, even though most people don't understand it and have never read it. And everything is about the Jews in Israel. And there's large conspiracy theories, and we can't support Iran because Israel supports them. And if we do that, that's just like proving the theory that America is run by Israel, and all these fucking loopholes and, have truths that people connect, like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, to make this one sort of melting pot of ideas for all these stupid people that don't really understand what the fuck is going on, or they do totally understand what is going on, but are choosing to see it in this way because it gets them more views or clicks or whatever the case may be, or it's a popular opinion right now to hate Jews and hate Israel. So, you can never really tell with people if they're being honest or not, or if they're just really, really, really dumb, which, I guess that could be the case as well. But again, some people think Sam Harris has lost it. Sometimes his clips get shared on X where he's not on that platform anymore, but I like Sam a lot. Hopefully one day I can have him on my podcast and we can have a nice conversation.
Happy to do deals with many, Gulf leaders. He's a big fan of MBS, and he's not a fan of those guys for the right reasons. I mean, so like, you can be a fan of MBS to the degree that he's actually sidelining his own hardline clerics and representing some kind of secular progress for the region. And I think that, the Abraham Accords, all of that's good. All of that's moving in the right direction. But, many of these guys are odious psychopaths and who were exporting their jihadism for decades prior to yesterday. Qatar is still a supporter of terrorism and informed by the theology of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'm sure Trump would be happy to collaborate with Qatar, right? So there's no, he doesn't have a compass for the real issue here. He's just a grifting lunatic who sees a lot of wealth in the Gulf and is just trying to figure out how to maximize his participation in all of that. So, the Gulf is at odds with Iran. Israel's at odds with Iran. Iran, therefore,
Elika Laban said something very interesting. Is like the reason why all this happens is because we really don't have a universal moral compass, and I think that's true. So we just kind of do whatever we want based on the grift or the money or the clicks or whatever, because there's no universal moral code that is driving all of us to live like these moral and ethical lives. Because life is hard and it's interesting. And there's many people with many different perspectives and values and things like that. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting take in that regard. I think she's had a conversation with Sam. I'm not really sure though.
Should be treated as an enemy, but he's not really tracking the emergency that we're seeing in front of us with the regime killing.
But didn't the Gulf states and Israel try to talk him out of engaging?
I did hear that, and I don't know what to make of it. I mean, it could be that Israel was not prepared to deal with any kind of immediate attack from Iran. I have no idea what is going on there, but I did hear that was the case.
Are you wanting to see American military involvement in Iran?
Well, I mean, I don't want
the people.
I think we should all be very squeamish at this point around American boots on the ground in any of these countries. But if we can use air power or even special forces to implement a regime change at this moment, I mean, it seems like the regime is closer to toppling than it's ever been, and it is just an objectively evil regime, right? So this is a moment. Again, I don't know what to hope for.
It should be easy to understand that it's objectively evil. That it's, again, not a political issue, but just a moral, humane issue. And, again, for the last 2 years, everyone cared about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza where people were suffering. And they were suffering. And I think it's important to care about those types of people because every person is made in the divine image of God, 100%. But if you have sort of moral clarity and consistency on your values, then it's easy to understand why you then would care about what's happening in Iran. Now, if you're a person who, hasn't said anything about anything, or you just kind of care about your own life and things of that nature, that's totally fine too. I think we also live in a world where we're supposed to know and care about everything all the time. And that's just not right either. So it's perfectly fine to say, I don't know, I'm not interested in that, whatever the case may be. But if you hear some of the things that might be happening, just to give a like say like, oh, I think that's horrible and I care about those people and like I feel that. Right. That's an empathetic, kind thing to do. Not that you have to, go run to Iran and like fucking fight in the war. That's not what anyone's saying. But the same people that were talking about Gaza didn't actually know anything about Gaza, didn't really care. They were just sort of morally posturing to people to get, oh, that's so nice of you. That's so kind of you. But it's also okay to not be interested in really any of this stuff because again, we're supposed to, based on social media, be informed about everything all the time, and we're afraid to say I don't know and this doesn't really concern me or whatever the case may be, and that's okay too. But if you're someone who does consistently talk about these things over and over and over and over and over again, and you don't have any consistency in your values or your moral takes, then you're just someone who's sort of flowing with the wind and flying by the seat of your pants and saying whatever might get you clicks or might get you attention or might get you anything that thinks that people think you're like nice or kind or the unearned moral virtue that you might be displaying and all this type of bullshit that we've seen come out based on some of these very real issues where humans are really, really, really suffering. And I think we as a society should care about human suffering. We should. Like, that's a moral issue, not a political one.
The aftermath of this, I think the Iranian people are willing to roll the dice with an aftermath. I think the popular support for the regime is probably around 20% or so, but it's certainly unlikely to be 50%. So I think a majority of Iranians, again, I'm just going on the basis of, the journalism I've read on this front, but it sounds like the majority of Iranians have for a long time been fed up with theocracy and for good reason. So yeah,
and
there's
that's not a
tipping point.
shithole. That is not a shithole country. I mean, that
No,
country will
and
bounce back
it's
quickly.
an amazing culture. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's different from, we risk drawing the wrong lesson from our misadventures overseas by grouping all these countries into the same bin. I mean, Iran is not Afghanistan, and Iraq wasn't Afghanistan. I mean, there's just, they're not. They both failed, but it's reasonable to consider them to have been quite different and to still be quite different.
Right.
Um,
And Venezuela, just while you're talking about that, is
Yeah.
also not
Oh yeah,
Afghanistan.
yeah. So the aftermath there. I mean, the aftermath in Venezuela could be pretty ugly. I have no idea what to expect, but I certainly don't expect anything like what we saw in Iraq or Afghanistan because we're talking about a country that has known democracy, wants democracy, it knows what it's like to have real institutions, is not riven by religious sectarianism. I mean, it's just there's a crime syndicate problem, no doubt, but anyway, none of it. There's zero evidence that the Trump administration is tracking any of the real humanitarian concerns in any of these countries. But I do think that we and Israel and anyone else who wants to have a hand in it should give a little nudge to Iran in whatever way that can be done without, needless loss of civilian life, so as to accomplish regime change there.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it, man. Yep, I pretty much agree with Sam on that regard. I also did a video about it, about 8 minutes long, about what's happening in Iran a few weeks ago. I released it on my YouTube channel. So yeah, you can check that out if you want to hear exactly my thoughts, but very similar to what Sam just said there. But thank you very much for tuning into that stream. Again, I mentioned a couple podcast episodes that I've released and done throughout this stream on my podcast, Something for Everybody. Again, if you want anything related to self-image or habits or goal setting, or you want the sort of ultimate guide that I released yesterday, just text me at the number 201-534-3681. Say you came from this stream, ask for what episode you want, and I'll directly link you to that so you don't have to look anywhere. But if you want to look somewhere on your favorite podcast platforms, again, the podcast is called Something for Everybody on all major podcast platforms. But thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to go eat some food, drink some more coffee, and get ready for the Royal Rumble, which is today in Saudi Arabia. So that'll be fucking cool. And then I'll see you guys back on a stream on a different day. But wherever you're watching this, please follow, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.